So Julian, thanks for joining us today. Really interested to hear about your startup Covidence and the work we've been doing with you over the last few years. I just want to start off with something a bit more open. When and why did you start a startup? What was the catalyst for that?
I don't think I set out to start a startup. I think I really had an idea, a particular mission, I guess, and that started just as a set of projects within. I'm a doctor, I work at a hospital, so we got some research funding and just started to play around and do stuff.
Yeah, right.
And then that just took off and became a startup.
Yeah, wow. And how long's it been going for?
Well, we spun out about 4 years ago.
Yeah, right. Wow. And what were you doing sort of before that? What was life as a doctor like?
Right, so I'm an HIV doctor.
Yep.
Actually, the idea for this really came when I was working in Cambodia. I was working with the Ministry of Health there.
Yeah, right.
We were trying to develop programs for people with HIV, trying to get treatment out. And you know, we actually had quite a lot of funding. There were a lot of people with HIV to treat, and we were having to set up programs very, very rapidly. And we found that it was very hard to find out what we should be doing, what the evidence was for a particular treatment or a particular program.
Yeah.
And I guess I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way than this. So, you know, I spent a lot of time, I guess, working with Cambodians to develop capacity and gradually handed over the stuff I was doing. And I thought, I'll go back to Australia and see if I can help solve this problem.
Yeah, wow. And so why Covidence specifically? What sparked that idea for what Covidence does?
Yeah, so I guess important to note, so Covidence is a software platform, a SaaS platform that helps people find and make sense of research so that people can make better decisions about their own health or the health of the people they're caring for.
Yeah.
I think what really struck us was there's all these incredibly brilliant people around the world who are trying to do this task, and they were doing it with really out-of-date generic platforms using literally pieces of paper, Excel, Access, and we were like, this is nuts. You know, this is extremely important evidence that people are trying to create here, and they just don't have the tools to do it.
Yeah, wow. It's I mean, I've been involved with Covidence for some time as well, and having done the research there, it's, you know, you're right, when you see the way that it is currently working, it's just a bit mind-boggling that no one's even thought about.
Yeah, I think I remember some of the early discussions we had, or when we've had a new team member from Cogent come on board, and we have that sort of onboarding briefing, you know, this is the mission and this is the sort of what we're trying to pursue. And then I think you always get that look about halfway through the meeting of are you serious? You know, you mean the doctor that I'm seeing?
Yeah.
You know.
They're working on 2-year-old research?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's weird. So what's been the most challenging thing about growing the business?
Well, we're a social enterprise. So we're primary mission driven, primary public good purpose. And so what that means is we can't, in our current model, take equity investment, so straight commercial investment. And so that's meant, you know, that's I think been the greatest challenge. It's hard to capitalise sufficiently and really drive the growth of business. But, you know, we've been really fortunate. We've had lots of grants, and then recently great support from major philanthropic organisations in Australia, Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, Ian Potter Foundation, and the Paul Ramsay Foundation. So all of that's been fantastic, but you know, there's no question, I think, that social enterprises are somewhat hampered by their ability to raise capital compared to straight commercial plays. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? Because it is, I mean, it's such an impactful thing that you're trying to do in the world. And you know, I've witnessed that growth that you've tried to establish without that. And
and so, you know, it's been a mix of that and organic growth and revenue. You know, we now got revenue, and all that's been great. But I think, you know, social enterprise is still quite a new concept in Australia in its current form, and it's still growing. So I think the capital markets, both commercial and philanthropic, are just starting to explore how they play in that space.
what's been the most rewarding thing? I mean, it obviously, trying to revolutionize evidence-based practices is it's a big task. It's a big vision.
Well, do I say working with Cogent has been the most rewarding?
You can say working with me specifically. I'm good with that as well.
Working with you. I guess in the end, the most rewarding thing, and I think this is the same for the whole team, is when you've been working really damn hard on something for months or years, and then you see it come to fruition, and you see the real impact it's having on people around the world in their lives. And we work with a particular community. They're academics and librarians and others, but we know that by helping them, we're helping to create the evidence that people are using around the world to make decisions. So see that become reality and really get traction and momentum and really start to make a difference. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, there's nothing that gives me, I talk to these users all the time, but nothing gives me more of a buzz than seeing that random person on Twitter go, something like, oh, I've just been using Covidence. I can't, what was life like before this?
Like an angel came down from the sky.
Like an angel came down from the sky, our famous quote. Yeah, that's great. Let's talk a bit about prioritising work. I mean, again, Covidence has been on a shoestring budget for so long. How do you decide what to do next?
With your help. So I guess as a founder, I've been on a real journey, and it's about learning the skills that you need to run a successful software company. And prioritization is one of the most important.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, to start with, I had no idea how to do that. And over time, working with you guys and other interactions, I sort of learned a bit more about how to do that. I think in the end, it actually comes down to having, very clear mission and very clear goals. And even if they're goals for the next 3, 6 months, whatever, getting the whole company behind that and just having real coherence and a shared understanding of that, and then letting that drive every decision you make. I think that is so super important. And it's something that to me just gets reinforced time and time and time again. It's almost supernatural how important that sort of focus is.
Yeah. How do you think about this? So there's obviously the work we're doing to prioritise in the product, but then there's also the work we're doing in the business as well. How do you handle those sort of?
I just see product as a subset of the business. So again, as long as we can have very clear and coherent goals as a business that's aligned to our mission and our values, and the team has really been part of creating those goals and has bought into them, we have that shared understanding, then that flows through every aspect of the business, and that includes product. So I don't think, in the end, it's not rocket science. It's pretty clear and simple what you have to do, but you've got to invest real time and energy to make sure that you're actually doing that properly. Yeah. And with authenticity, you actually are buying into that shared vision. It's not just on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always a struggle to get so many disparate people as well, right? On that same.
Yeah, and we're a very remote team. We've got, we're a small team, but people are all around the world. So, as you know, one of the things we've been working on is really trying to build that team culture and team communication in order to generate that sort of shared vision.
Yeah, and so I met you through Cogent. Covidence was working with Cogent well before I started there. What prompted you to work? Why did you pick Cogent as the place to start this startup that you accidentally started?
Good question. I actually did hear of Cogent about a year before we first engaged. I assumed you'd be too expensive, so I didn't come anywhere closer. But of course, like many people, some of that initial work where I was, contracting out, just had some, pretty average experiences. Yeah. And all roads lead back to Cogent, and came back here and obviously, started the first engagement. I can't even remember how big it was now, but I think pretty modest, and had a good experience, and then just sort of built from there.
Yeah. What are you looking for in a good experience in that first kind of engagement?
I think I have very particular views about this, and I might be different to other founders, but and I've said this before, the thing I really value about Cogent is that you are different. You're different to the other software shops, and I think it's because in the end you get a sense that you actually really care about your products that you're working on. You know, there are many shops around that are, there's just much more tangible feeling that the customers are there to service the ongoing sustainability of that consultancy. I think in Cogent there is a deeper sense of purpose and mission that really flows out through the whole organisation, and in everything from the people who work here, all the hiring decisions, and just the culture. I think to me there's that depth and authenticity and real commitment to the products that, you know, just plays out in everything you do. And I think in the end we end up with better product. As clients, we end up with better products, and that's certainly been, you know, essential for Covidence and our growth. Yeah,
great. And the golden question: what advice would you give a startup founder about building great products?
There's so many sort of just throwaway words that you could use.
You can give them multiple tips too. It's totally fine.
No. So I think I've really learned about focus.
Yeah.
Focus is just hugely important. I think that when you start a journey as a founder, you often bite off a really big problem because it's bugged you in some way and you see a particular need. And in the classic whole, you know, minimum viable product way, it's sort of saying, you know, actually, you know, as someone who's wanting to solve that big problem, I want to solve the whole problem.
Yeah.
But as a founder, what I want to do is I want to actually have a successful software company that can solve that problem. And to get a successful software company, the best way to do that is to actually find the smallest piece to solve. And I think that's actually a really difficult thing to really internalize early on. Because once you've solved, as you know, solved that small problem, you can just iterate and build from there. It's much, much easier. So I think that whole MVP model and focus is extremely important initially. I think working with great people, again, really hard in the current environment because of, you know, it's difficult to recruit and find people, but spend the extra time, even if it takes longer, even if you're down to the 11th hour recruiting someone and you just don't feel it's right, don't go with it. Like you've just getting, you know, when you're starting up, you've got a small team, and the members of that team initially are just so important, both in terms of delivering the sort of stuff you've got to deliver to survive, but also in developing the culture of your company. That's super critical. And then the third thing I'd say is just persistence. I think the key, I mean, again, there are so many famous quotes about this, but I think there have been so many times where it seemed like this whole endeavour was going to fail. You know, on paper you would go, this is just nuts.
Why are we doing this again?
Why are we doing this? Has this got any chance of success? And I think in the end, it really is about your just damn determination and persistence that really makes the difference in the end. So if you're passionate about your particular mission or problem that you're trying to solve, you've got to look at the way, you've got to think carefully about how deep that passion is and whether that's going to really keep the fire in the belly sufficient to walk through all those valleys of death to get to the other side.
Yeah, like how have you balanced, I mean, you know, because that depth has to be so focused, how have you managed to balance that kind of home life, work life thing? Because I imagine that then starts to take a toll on things beyond.
I think it's a really important question. I think particularly many founders younger than me and probably have young families, and I think part of it is actually saying, if this is my passion, this is my work passion, then you've got to try to find ways where you don't have other work. And as you know, that's been a challenge for me. I've had many other responsibilities which I've gradually got rid of, but I think at least saying this is my work passion, and I say it's a little bit like running your endeavours in series, not parallel.
Right.
So there might be other things you want to do in your work life, fine, just don't do them now. If you can, financially, even if it's like, I'm going to give this a red hot go for 12 months or 18 months or whatever it is, do that. And then balancing with home life, I mean, I think it's something we all struggle with. We just make the best balance we can. You've got to understand in the end that this endeavour may succeed or it may not, and in the end, what are the more important things in life? It's your home and family and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending the time talking about this. We don't get the opportunity to talk like this.
We don't. We should do it more often.
Should be coffee involved, something like that.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so thanks very much, Julian.
That's great. Pleasure.
Cheers.